They thought she was just a stranger on their ship, until the USS Meridian started obeying her instead of the Navy. Doors opened when she walked. Radars moved when she breathed. And when enemy soldiers landed on the deck, the ship didn't wait for orders. It defended her. One woman, and an entire warship moving like a living creature under her command. If you think you've seen battles before, you've never seen a ship fight for its master. The storm clouds hadn't moved in hours, hanging low and heavy over the USS Meridian, like a warning carved across the sky. The ship cut through the dark water with practiced authority, engines humming a rhythm that kept every sailor grounded, everyone except her. Elara Wynne walked the deck with a quiet certainty that unsettled the crew more than the approaching battle did. She wasn't Navy. She wasn't listed on any crew manifest. Yet the ship reacted to her presence in ways no one could explain. When she passed, pressure doors hissed open without a touch. When she paused, radar arrays reoriented as if waiting for her next decision. And when she breathed, the Meridian seemed to breathe with her. Lieutenant Carter watched her from the command platform, trying to hide the unease building in his gut. "She's doing it again," he muttered, his voice barely above the wind. Chief Ramos followed his gaze and exhaled sharply. "I don't know what she is," he said. "But the ship listens to her more than it listens to us." Elara didn't acknowledge them. Her steps were slow and measured, each footfall echoing across the steel deck like the ship was amplifying her presence. She tilted her head slightly, as if hearing something beneath the engine roar, something ancient and familiar. Then she stopped. In the distance, shapes emerged from the fog. Enemy assault vessels, dark and angular, gliding through the water with predatory intent. Floodlights snapped on, slicing through the grey. Lines of armed soldiers lined their rails. Grappling systems armed for boarding. The Meridian's crew stiffened. Orders were barked. Weapons were loaded. But Elara remained still, her eyes locked on the approaching threat. When the first hostile ship fired a warning volley, the deck shuddered under the impact of displaced water. The shot was close. Too close. Carter reached for the intercom. "All stations, prepare for incoming fire." Elara raised a hand. The Meridian shivered. The ship adjusted its angle by a fraction, just enough that the next blast tore across empty sea instead of hull. Spray erupted upward in a violent plume behind them, but the ship remained untouched. Carter froze mid-command. "How did she know?" Ramos's voice was almost a whisper. "She didn't. The Meridian did." The enemy ships accelerated, closing the distance. Grappling anchors shot forward, metal claws biting into the Meridian's railings. Ropes lashed across the deck, lines tightening as soldiers prepared to board. Crew members rushed to cut the lines, but Elara stepped forward calmly, sweeping her palm across the railing. The moment her skin touched the cold steel, a low vibration pulsed through the ship, deep, powerful, resonant. Every turret pivoted in unison, every defense system armed without a single command from the bridge. The Meridian reacted like a living creature bracing for impact. The first enemy soldiers landed, boots hitting the deck with sharp metallic thuds. They rushed forward in formation, expecting chaos, expecting confusion, fear, hesitation. Instead, they found Elara standing alone before them. The air itself felt charged around her. The Meridian steel under her feet thrummed like it recognized her steps. The soldiers hesitated, confused by her lack of weapon, lack of armor, lack of fear. Elara moved first. Her motion was a blur, faster than anyone could track. She intercepted the lead soldier before he could raise his rifle, guiding his momentum sideways with effortless precision. He collapsed against the railing, breath stolen, weapon clattering across the deck. Another soldier charged. Elara touched the deck with her fingertips. and the meridian shifted almost imperceptibly beneath her. The subtle tilt threw the attacker off balance, sending him stumbling forward. She stepped aside, letting his own force send him crashing into a support beam. Carter watched from the upper platform, stunned. She's coordinating with the ship. She's timing every attack with every movement of the hull. Ramos shook his head slowly. No, the ship is timing itself with her. More soldiers descended. Ropes hissed through the air, boots thudding against steel. A wave of enemy forces surged toward the center of the deck. Elara walked directly into them. She was a storm contained within human form, striking, parrying, redirecting. Every movement was mirrored by the meridian, railings sliding open to block gunfire, floor panels shifting to disrupt enemy footing, turrets turning to provide cover without firing a single shell. The crew stared in disbelief. This wasn't defense. This was harmony. The boarding parties regrouped, forming a semicircle around her. Their commander stepped forward, swinging a heavy shock baton designed to subdue even armored marines. Elara's expression didn't change. The commander lunged. The meridian tilted, so subtly the crew barely felt it, but just enough that the commander's strike passed through empty air. Elara pushed off the shifting deck, spinning with a speed impossible for a normal human, and drove her palm into his chest. The blow echoed like metal striking metal. He collapsed, gasping. Carter exhaled hard. She's not fighting alone. The ship, it's fighting with her. As more enemy forces prepared their final push, a sudden, thunderous blast erupted from the flagship behind them. A cannon volley, massive, precise, deadly, cut through the storm clouds and streaked toward the Meridian's bow. Several sailors shouted. Rams sounded alarms. Carter braced himself against the platform railing. Elara did not move. She placed one hand lightly on the ship's rail. For a moment, everything fell silent. Crew, enemies, wind, even the distant thunder. The Meridian seemed to inhale, engines pulsing like a heartbeat aligning with hers. The ship twisted, not violently, not desperately, but with flawless instinct, gliding the massive vessel just far enough that the cannon fire tore across empty ocean instead of metal. A column of steam and flame shot upward as the blast struck the water. The roar swallowed the sky. Waves surged over the deck, crashing against the railings. The Meridian rocked, but did not crack. Carter felt his pulse stop. Ramos's jaw trembled. No ship can react that fast, not even with a full manual override. Elara opened her eyes, calm and focused. The Meridian remembers its purpose, she said quietly, and it remembers who it was built for. For the first time, even the enemy soldiers hesitated. Then through the fog, the enemy flagship repositioned, its weapons angling directly at the Meridian, preparing for a devastating close-range barrage. More boarding teams rushed forward, ropes tightening, boots ready to land. Elara stepped toward the bow, the storm light reflecting in her eyes like fire on steel. The Meridian hummed beneath her feet. The enemy closed in, and the crew realized she wasn't defending the ship. The ship was defending her. The enemy flagship loomed through the storm like a steel titan, its guns glowing as they charged for a point-blank strike. The deck vibrated under the weight of the approaching assault teams. Ropes snapped against the rails. Hundreds of boots slammed onto the Meridian as more soldiers poured in, shouting orders, drowned by thunder and cannon heat. Lieutenant Carter steadied himself on the command platform. "We can't hold them. There's too many." Elara didn't turn. Her eyes were locked on the enemy flagship. The wind whipped her hair across her face, the storm flaring around her like it recognized her just as the Meridian did. The ship beneath her seemed to wait. Another volley ignited the sky. Closer, brighter, lethal. The flagship had lined up a kill shot aimed directly at the Meridian's center. Chief Ramos shouted over the chaos. "If that blast hits—" "It won't," Ilara said. She stepped forward. The Meridian responded instantly. Metal groaned, engines roared, and the entire ship pivoted in a way no vessel that size should ever have been capable of. The bow sliced sideways across the waves, shifting the ship out of the cannon's path at the final second. The enemy fire detonated harmlessly against the sea, exploding into a mountain of water and flame. Soldiers on both sides staggered. Some lost footing. Others clung to ropes as the deck tilted beneath them. Ilara didn't lose balance for a moment. Instead, she placed her palm flat against the steel again, gentle, confident, almost affectionate. The Meridian reacted like a creature unleashed. Hatches opened. Bulkheads shifted, steel shutters slammed down to block enemy sight lines. Railings retracted to force intruders into narrow passages. Pathways locked, creating a labyrinth only Ilara could navigate. Boarding teams tried to regroup, but every step they took was countered by the ship itself. The Meridian funneled them, tripped them, sealed them off in compartments that became steel cages. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. Lieutenant Carter stared, breath caught. "She's turning the ship into a weapon." Without firing a single round, Ramos shook his head. "She's not turning it into anything. This is what the Meridian has always been. For her." The enemy commander roared an order for a final charge. Desperation, rage, pride collapsing into fear. Dozens of soldiers surged toward Ilara at once. The Meridian lowered the deck beneath their feet. Just slightly, just enough. They stumbled, and Ilara moved. Her movements were graceful and brutal all at once, faster than any trained fighter should be. She used the ship's shifts like extensions of her own body, redirecting attackers into barriers, striking with precision, flowing through their ranks like she had always belonged on the steel battleground. One by one, they fell, disarmed, defeated, unable to comprehend how she was always one step ahead. The storm cracked open with thunder as the enemy flagship repositioned again, its lights flickering across the black water. They were preparing another blast, one powerful enough to take them both down. Carter shouted, "Ilara, if they fire, they won't get the chance." She closed her eyes. The Meridian responded before her next breath. The engine screamed, driving the entire ship forward in a maneuver that should have torn it apart. The Meridian surged ahead, cutting through waves, heading directly toward the flagship. The enemy scrambled. Too late. The Meridian veered at the final moment, not to ram, but to unleash the force they had been building. A shockwave of displaced water hammered into the enemy flagship, tilting it violently. Soldiers toppled overboard. Weapons tore from their hands. Systems sparked. The flagship's main batteries misfired. The enormous blast they had prepared detonated inside their own hull. A column of flame erupted skyward. Metal screamed. The entire ship buckled, swallowed by fire and collapsing steel. Silence fell across the ravaged water. The remaining enemy teams froze, staring at the burning wreck in disbelief. Their ropes loosened. Their weapons dropped. One by one, they raised their hands in surrender. Ilara exhaled softly, lowering her hand from the Meridian's rail. The ship beneath her settled. Calm, steady, almost relieved. Carter approached her slowly, awe still etched as across his face. "Ilara, how did you do all of this?" She looked out over the settling ocean, voice quiet, but resolute. The Meridian wasn't built to obey the Navy. It was built to protect the one it trusted. "And that's you?" Carter asked. Ilara turned to him with a faint, tired smile. "It always has been." Lightning flashed behind her, the sea rolling gently now as the enemy scattered in retreat. The Meridian drifted forward with quiet pride, guided by the only person it had ever truly belonged to. The ship and the woman, moving as one, sailed into the clearing storm.